Jonathan Smith had a lot to say at Big Ten Media Day, but there was one quote that was more refreshing than all the other ones. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for making Locked On Spartans your first listen or watch every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below your highlight of the Big Ten Media Days. If anything caught your ear, we want to hear about it. Because there's a lot that caught our ears. We're going to go through it all, and we're going to kick things off with the one quote. My goodness gracious, it was just nice to hear this out loud. Now, I'll just get ahead of it right now. We have to actually see this materialize on the field, maybe off the field, wherever this happens. But boy, howdy, gee willikers. It was just nice to hear that, just another reminder that we're going to have a steady hand here in the program. Jonathan Smith in front of the world, in front of the Big Ten media in Indianapolis saying, quote, "I'm not going to panic the first adversity we see. We always want to be in a constant state of improvement, and we'll build this the right way." Now that question, yes, that was about building a program from the macro level, like the long-term view of this program, just, hey, you know what? Maybe we'll hit a few bumps along the way. And he also mentioned you have to build the foundation first, because he also talked about timing of the rebuild. He mentioned that, yeah, that's right. In the world of competitive athletics, there's not a lot of patience for a long, drawn-out rebuild. I don't think it was too long and drawn out over at Oregon State. I think it was about 3 years since they really started to hit their stride. But nevertheless, hey, you know what? If there's any adversity, we're going to learn from it. But I like hearing this, because I got a feeling that this will also translate to the micro level, and we are talking about just games, plays, series, turnovers, because, hey, I don't really know if you guys remember this or not. A lot of adversity last season and a lot of snowballing last season. Like, if one thing went wrong during a game, then, you can bet all the money you owe as things are about to get a lot more squirrely after that play. Let's just go through two games just that come to mind immediately. Again, I'm sorry to start your day on such a sour note and reminding you of all the great times that we had last year. How about that Iowa game? All right, tight game, close game, and then all of a sudden, we have a 15-yard punt. Well, that's not good. Okay, well, and then, after that, the series after that, punt return for a touchdown. The series after that, how about a fumble? The series after that, well, how about an interception? Things snowballed out of control there, but there was never any game where it was more evident that this team does not do well under adversity than that Rutgers game last year. Let's just play through the sequence for you all. Yet again, if you're driving to work right now, I'm sorry if you're punching your steering wheel so hard that the airbag's deployed, but how about the illegal punt formation? Okay, we all know what happened immediately after that. It was a fumbled punt snap. Well, Rutgers scores a touchdown, and then we have a 3-and-out, and then Rutgers scores a touchdown, and then there's a botched kickoff, and then Rutgers scores a touchdown, and then we have a 3-and-out. That all happened in order. Like, I wasn't skipping any possessions or anything. Like, that's how bad and how fast things got out of hand. It's a millisecond. Things did not go well here in East Lansing. I know that a lot of that, if not everything I just mentioned, happened under interim coach Harlan Barnett, but we also saw it too in the previous year. Is that, hey, once things started getting a little out of control, all that there was just a keep chopping hand sign, and disaster ensuing right after that. But hey, you know what, Jonathan Smith, if there's one thing he is, and maybe it is for the better here, he's even keel. He is not emotional whatsoever, and I think that could kind of just trickle out to the rest of the team. We saw that at Big Ten Media Days. What we wanted to see was just him be himself. Concise, short with answers, professional, and that's basically what he did there. So, yes, I know he had a lot to say, but just hearing that, you know what, guys, we're not going to let adversity slow us down. It's going to be on to the next play, on to the next step of our rebuild. Yeah, that's what we wanted to see here. Now, so as far as the offseason goes, we're going to get into a few quotes that he also said at Big Ten Media Days. Now, we also said that we wanted to hear any signs of maybe, sped up progress, if you will, because, it's a new defensive system. There's a new offense being installed. Yes, there's the bones of that offense that came over from Oregon State, like the quarterback. He knows it. The tight end, Jack Valley, knows it. Tanner Miller, your interior offensive lineman, knows it. But how about the rest of the team? Was he going to tip his hand that things are going a little faster than usual? He said, quote, "We went to work starting in December, laying a foundation through spring practice that we felt really good about. Can't give enough credit to our strength staff led by Mike McDonald for all the work that he's been doing." We're going to get into a few roster weight numbers here in the next segment. But yeah, it was nice that he shouted out strength and conditioning coach Mike McDonald. So we didn't get anything that was concrete like, yeah, defense is coming along a lot further than it is, or the offense, oh, yeah, we're going to hit the ground running immediately, even faster than what I thought we could, or faster than we did in my first year of the rebuild at Oregon State. But nevertheless, you know what? Just overall happy. Now, he did do this, and you know what? You could be upset about this. You could be just absolutely fine about it. I, for one, am fine about this because if you don't know by now, I'm very much in the camp that, yes, this is a rebuild. And I think most State fans understand that too. It's back-to-back bowl gameless seasons. Yes, we do have some exciting players on this team, but I think it's going to be maybe 2-3 years before the gears really start turning on this Jonathan Smith machine. And he kind of emphasized that too. Not backing down from the road ahead, saying, quote, "There's a huge amount of work moving forward, but I'm looking forward to doing it." And also, too, on Aidan Chiles. Now, look, we are thrilled to have Aidan Chiles part of this program. I can't even count how many episodes that we've done on Aidan Chiles, how he raises the floor for Michigan State football, the ceiling that he can be at one day as a Spartan, maybe even as soon as this year. But it is important to be somewhat patient with this true sophomore. Again, a lot of new teammates. It's got to build chemistry. We talked about that with Brian Lewerke on yesterday's show. It's just how important it is to build receiver chemistry even before the season starts and how difficult it can be at some times. But about Aidan Chiles, he said, quote, "Athletically, he is gifted throwing the ball and can move his feet, but he's got a deep passion for the game. He likes studying it, and he's got some instincts for the game. He's still a youngster. He got some action last year, but we're looking forward to seeing him play full-time and giving us a chance to score some points." So obviously exuding confidence for his quarterback that he brought over from Corvallis, but I think it's important that he threw in he's still a youngster. Now, whether the damage is already done, I might be part of this damage because, well, yeah, we talk about Michigan State football almost 5 days a week here. We talk about Aidan Chiles a lot and how excited we are. It's still important to know, re-emphasize, just like Jonathan Smith did today, still a young guy, all right? There's going to be some bumps in the road, especially if this offensive line has a few injuries or aren't clicking right off the bat. We're going to see what we get from Aidan Chiles right here. And speaking of that offensive line, all right, so this is what he had to say about that because he was directly asked about the offensive line. That's one of the biggest concerns, maybe arguably the biggest concern going into the season. He said, quote, "We got some things established in the spring, but we have a lot of work in August. And that's for every position to tighten up our best five, but to continue to have some depth. In this physical game, you'll end up playing more than 5 guys during the season. And ain't that the truth? And if you are a Michigan State fan that has not learned that lesson so far, especially in the last few years, that there are injuries that happen on the offensive line, then, well, you just weren't watching close enough. It happens. And that is where the concern lies with us, is the depth. We feel okay about the starting 5, right? You brought over Tanner Miller. Awesome. You brought over FCS All-American Luke Newman from Holy Cross. That's fantastic. The 2 tackles graded pretty well in Pro Football Focus at the end of the year last year. Big Dooley Christian Phillips, that's your last interior guy. Okay, you know what? You could easily talk yourself into this being a strong unit. Right behind them, though, it's Dallas Fincher. He has college experience. Beyond him, his former walk-ons, is redshirt freshman. Oh, my. So, yes, not only are you also, establishing a new system on offense with some more outside zone run, you got to somewhat relearn with what you were doing most of the time last year, especially with young guys, too. Yeah, that's what we have to look forward to. So he was asked about it. He did directly say, we got some work to do. But there is that. Folks, we got a little bit more to talk about. But first, I need to talk your ears off about the Gametime app, my favorite ticketing app in the game. Now, why do I love Gametime? Guys, you already know it. It's the flash deals. It's the last-minute ticket deals. Now, those 2 things, the flash deals, we'll start with those. Let's say that in 2 weeks, you're going to go to a Tigers game or a concert or anything that's ticketed. You can hop on anytime. You're going to find some flash deals in remarkable locations in the venue. Now, on the opposite end, let's say you didn't plan weeks ahead. Let's say that you just woke up one morning and said, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go to that Tigers game today. Actually, oh my God, the first pitch is in 30 minutes. That's way too late to get a ticket. No, it's not. Go on Game Time. You're going to enjoy the last-minute ticket deals. Open up your phone. They will have deals for you up until the first pitch. Guys, it is incredible at Game Time. And also the Game Time ticket coverage. They cover everything from lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, 24-hour guarantee, job loss assurance, and on-time ticket delivery. You cannot beat Game Time, plain and simple. And they're also going to save you money right off the bat. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets this season with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guarantee. Now back into the world of Big Ten Media Days, and we're actually going to go swimming into the world of recruiting just for a quick second. And, this also applies to the transfer portal or really just anyone that's on his personnel. Because this is a tweet from Steve Wiltfong. This was in the smaller media sessions. This wasn't in front of the big microphone live on Big Ten Network. But he did say, when it comes to recruiting, transfer portal, everything we just said, quote, we want guys for whatever reasons with chips on their shoulders, that they're motivated, that they want to be competitive, to compete and win, and they understand that it takes a lot of work to do that. Now, that sounds a lot like the old Mark D'Antonio days. We are looking for chips on the shoulder. If you didn't get enough of that slop right there, well, we got another quote too. This is from On3. I think it's similar in regard to work ethic, deep passion for football, wanting to be a good teammate. This is the ultimate team game. Guys that don't want to make it all about themselves and want to be part of something bigger than themselves. Those attributes are what we are looking for, besides obviously the skill set side and all of that. So yes, we see right now, we've talked about it a lot in the last few weeks. Michigan State for the 2025 recruiting cycle, they're floating somewhere around 50th nationally. All right, flatly, long-term, if you're thinking college football playoff, that's not necessarily going to get it done, in my prediction. Look, it's good to have the culture, guys, and that's clearly what Jonathan Smith is doing in his first full cycle. I'm just going to try to do the shortened version right here. This is probably as good as he could be doing in this first full cycle. A lot of these guys that he's having commit, all one-year relationships in a world where a lot of recruiting is already done with guys that you've known for 2 or 3 years. So he's kind of recouping what he's lost in time with guys that can fit a culture here. That's not going to change. All right. You hope, and I assume, I don't know what word it is, maybe some combination of both. If you guys have a dictionary, you can help me out there. But I think that it's going to be, in the top 30s, maybe in 2026. It can't always hum around 50, but in the meantime, until he gets his program turned around, starts winning, starts building good, solid relationships, multi-year relationships with those 4-star recruits. This is what we're going to fill it with, guys that fit the culture, and you can kind of see it already. Anyone that's committed, very low drama. It's not like, all right, I'm releasing my top 20 list on Tuesday, and then my top 18 list coming up, and then, I'm going to decommit here, but then recommit, and wait, here's my top 5 schools I'm going to decommit to. No, it seems like no nonsense across the board with a lot of these kids. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that, hey, he likes his low ego, high output kids. And yes, he was asked about that. He's like, what's the mantra going to be this year? And guys, that one's sticking around. Low ego, high output. If you're Nike, start printing the shirts right now because that's kind of a banger. I do like that. So overall, look, I think Jonathan Smith did pretty solid. He's in front of the microphone for, 15 minutes? And guys, everyone's undefeated at Media Day. It's impossible to lose Media Day. Unless you are UCLA head coach Deshaun Foster. Also, just like Jonathan Smith, first-year Big Ten coach, but he's really taken over the Big Ten role for the first time. Was a running backs coach at UCLA, and there's already questions about that. If you haven't seen the clip of poor Deshaun Foster, not to just make fun of the guy, because clearly public speaking is not his forte. It's not a lot of people's forte, but my man, you can't be taking literally a 13-second pause at the microphone when you're in front of the media like that. And if 13 seconds doesn't sound like a while, believe me, I know it doesn't, but just go ahead, just pause this really quick for 13 seconds and then start again. You will learn how awkward of a silence that is. So the fact that Jonathan Smith was able to go after him, look really good, and I thought he just looked good to begin with, but look really good after that. You know what? Turns out you can win and lose media days. Jonathan Smith had no problem winning it. Other news and notes here, guys. He also mentioned Training camp is going to open this upcoming Tuesday. Players are going to report on Monday. So yes, fall ball is back in our lives before we even know it. How beautiful is that? Now, when they released the roster that had 118 players on it, your eyes go immediately to, okay, all the guys that said that they're going to transfer here in the spring, are we all accounted for? Are we 13 for 13? Turns out, yes, we are. All the 13 players that committed over the spring portal cycle, they were on the roster right now. Samar Melvin, not on the roster right now. I don't think he ever announced intentions to enter the transfer portal, so maybe he's just quietly done with football from that point on. So that is a name in the secondary that has dropped. But, I mean, secondary depth is pretty strong right now. I wish Samar Melvin well. I say this in the best way possible, but, like, I don't necessarily think any of us will be losing sleep on that. It's God, as mean as that sounds, but I'm here to shoot you straight. We do have some number changes, and how about this? Nick Marsh hasn't even played a snap of collegiate football yet. He's already changed his number. He was 15. Now he's going single digits. He's going to be 6 this year. Antonio Gates Jr., another receiver that has changed his number. He is going numero uno. He will be number 1 this year. Now, we do have some news and notes from the scale that we want to bring up. We're going to talk offensive linemen here because, sure, your eyes gravitate straight to, okay, well, all the transfers here. And then we go over to some height and weight. Now, it's hard to grow vertically in college, of course, unless you do that, shin cracking and cranking surgery that made everyone taller during COVID. No one's really doing that in the football field anymore, but you can look at weight. So Gavin Brocious, he is up 14 pounds from last season, now at 302 pounds. Ashton Lepo, he gained 10 pounds. He is now 306 pounds. And Christian Phillips, I believe, there's a 4-pound addition for him. He's now clocking in at 319. So that means that Tanner Miller is your only starting lineman on the offense that is below 300 pounds, but he's not skinny as a rail. I mean, he's still clocking in at 290 on a 6'2" frame. My man is built like a cube, and he is a cube of destruction. He was at Oregon State, and he certainly will be here at Michigan State. So there you have it. That's the biggest news that you could get just from gawking at a roster right now. And before we are joined by, I guess I shouldn't say we are joined. I actually joined Spencer McLaughlin's show, Locked On College Football. We're going to air that conversation here in the next segment. But before that, with the Olympic ceremony just around the corner, we have a trio of Spartans that we have to shout out here. The first one is Heath Baldwin, men's decathlon. We've had him on the show a few times. Now, he was number 1 at the USA Trials. He is going into this in hopes to get a medal. Right now, he's ranked number 6 in the world, but he told Spartans Illustrated that, hey, you know what? If he could set some personal records that he is very confident in setting, he could see that podium in his sights. Now, he will not begin his competition until the following Friday. But, there we go. So that's number 1, Heath Baldwin. Number 2, Tori Franklin, 2-time Olympian in the triple jump. The last Olympics over in Tokyo, she got 25th in the triple jump, and that will be going on next Thursday and Friday for Miss Franklin. And last but not least, Shea Colley, second Olympic team with Canada's women's basketball team, which starts on Monday. And if you want to fancy some wagers over at FanDuel, well, this is just how dominant USA women's basketball is. They are minus 1,800 to win the gold medal, which, like, my God, if there's a team with that steep of, or like that heavy of odds, just why are we having the competition right now? Anyway, back to our Spartan playing for the Canadian women's team, 35-1 for them to win the gold medal. So good luck to Heath Baldwin, Tori Franklin, Shea Colley. I know they're all listening to this. I'm sure this is part of their preparation when they're stretching as Locked On Spartans, but there you have it. All right, back to more college football talk with our guy, Spencer McLaughlin here in a hot second.
How rough could this year be for Michigan State? Matt Sheehan of Locked On Spartans joining me here on the show. So, what's the floor? What's the worst season Michigan State could possibly have this year, Matt?
You know, I look right to the schedule when I hear that question. Just on baseline, no matter how bad of a team you are, you look at the first month, it's Florida Atlantic, Maryland, Prairie View A&M, and then Boston College. You go to the last 4 games of the season, it's Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. Those aren't necessarily haymakers, teams that are going to be in this 12-team playoff. However, I did leave out 4 games. I did leave out Ohio State, your Oregon Ducks, Iowa, and Michigan. Those 4 teams are in the top 5 of the preseason Big Ten poll, so it's going to be a tough middle. But even in your worst, you can manage 4 wins, 5 wins. Right now, the over-under in Vegas is at 4.5. I'm a little more optimistic than Vegas is having us right now. So I would just on the schedule alone, I like that as the floor right now. Are there issues with this team? Let's not get it twisted. Yes, there are. There's some depth issues on the offensive line, the defensive line. Coach Smith kind of alluded to that today at Big Ten Media Days with the offensive line. But everywhere else, you know what? Sure, I know all the headlines were saying, oh, Michigan State lost a bunch in the transfer portal. But not a lot of people want to talk about what we got in the transfer portal. We added a high floor to our secondary. We added a great quarterback. We added a great tight end. So I think it's going to be actually a decent season if they're healthy. And a lot of the health depends on this offensive line because, well, we're going to want to keep Aidan Chiles and all of his four limbs functioning the entire season. So stay tuned to see how that's going to work out for us, Spencer.
Indeed, I shall, because this is Locked On College Football, and once the season gets here, I don't plan on tuning out until the off-season, quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. But let's talk about what Jonathan Smith said here in Indianapolis. My overall takeaway, Matt, was he didn't say much. He really wasn't even that loquacious with his comments. He's never been, the biggest talker or the greatest quote or anything. It looks like that's carrying over into East Lansing. He knows what answers he wants to give, but he gives pretty standard ones. And for the most part, I just kind of felt it was, the same old Jonathan Smiths we've kind of come to know, where, he says something, it's very quick, and a reporter might spend 10 seconds asking a question, and he might spend 20 seconds answering it, and then he's going on to the next one.
He's concise, he's professional, and really that kind of sets the tone for Michigan State in their next chapter right now. And that's something
he's also, as we record, literally walking like 20 feet right over there. So I hope he didn't hear me.
Can you tell us
get offended?
By the way?
Yeah. I'll pass that along. I think that's as professional as it gets, by the way.
Good. Excellent. No problem. So, look, he is concise. He is short with most of his answers. But, before the Big Ten Media Day started, we said that you can't get a lot out of Media Days most of the time. But Michigan State has had a lack of identity the last few years, whether it's on the field, whether it's off the field. Us Michigan State fans, we've heard it the last 8 months, ever since his tenure started, but this was a chance for him to show the conference who he is and who Michigan State is going to be here. So I hope, in a way that this clean, concise professionalism at the podium can go to the football field. You watch Oregon State the last few years, you can certainly see the DNA of that. So, yes, he is short, and what he is also, though, is like it could have got a lot worse. It could have been Deshaun Foster, not to, absolutely bury the guy even more than he has been buried on social media.
Ouch. Matt firing shots across the bow, but
I don't feel good about it. I know public speaking can be hard for some people, but you say all the time.
I don't think that was his problem.
No one ever loses Big Ten Media Days. How can you lose a media day? And it's like, well, I'm glad my coach followed him because he looks great right now compared to that. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it is kind of a, media days, just don't lose it, because then you don't want perceptions to be negative. Deshaun Foster lost media days. I think that's
tough.
That was a tough look. I mean, the benefit of the doubt thought would be he didn't know he had to give an opening statement, in which case his SID failed him. If he did know and that's what he had prepared, that's not the best image to project. But Jonathan Smith, thankfully for Michigan State fans, doesn't have those sorts of problems. Yeah. One thing I want to talk to you about, Matt, the running game. This is a huge part of what Jonathan Smith teams really just the one team that he's been the head coach for. But even you go back to his time as his offensive coordinator at Washington, they run the football. They are more traditional. They'll go under center. And Smith talked about the running backs and the sort of playmaking that they bring to the room.
We liked his physicality, his production he's already had. I think it was a nice change up to maybe a little bit different than Nate's skill set, and so having some difference there in the backfield. Maturity, but wanted to have an opportunity for a year to play at the biggest and the best. And he's been working since he's got here. I know he's excited about the opportunity.
Yeah, it's a big cliche here at Michigan State, and as it is with a lot of different programs out there, but physicality, pound green pound was a slogan that was thrown around many years ago. We got to get back to that, and he said as much too, and you've also seen it at his time at Washington and Oregon State, that he lays the foundation with his run game. I'm high on the running backs that they have. I know it was a very tough season for them last year, especially Nate Carter going the last 10 games of the season, finding the end zone as many times as me and you did, Spencer. It was tough. I'm not going to throw all that on Nate Carter. I'm not even going to throw most of it on Nate Carter. He was helpless Thanks to Will, an offensive coordinator that made every single play call as predictable as the sun rising in the east. And also the offensive line was last year. So he's got a good running mate too, which can only help. K'Ron Lynch-Adams out of UMass, 1,000+ yard rusher for the Minutemen over there. They're two guys that are very similarly built. It's not like a lightning and thunder situation where, hey, you got your bowling ball of a guy, you got your flashy quick guy. It's wrecking ball and wrecking ball with these two guys around 6 feet, a little over 200 pounds. So yes, I think that the running game will have a resurgence here. We'll see how much it is going to be in year one because, well, I can't say it enough. I say it on my show all the time. The starting offensive line, you feel okay about that. Only have one guy in the 2 deep, though, that has any college experience in Dallas Fincher. So injuries are part of football. Jonathan Smith even said it during this press conference today. Yeah, we'll see how it looks if we have to get into the backups here moving on this season.
Speaking of his press conference, I had the chance to ask Jonathan Smith about building a program as he did at Oregon State and also about Michigan State's quarterback, Aidan Chiles. Here's what he had to say.
Some similarities, I guess, coaching transition mid-season in that. And then, but again, I go back, this is a new season. And however the previous season went, really good or really not well, this is going to be a new season, new direction that we're focused on, moving forward. And that's a similar message from both places.
For Aidan Chiles, the experience he got last year at Oregon State, how helpful is that going into his first full year as a starter?
Yeah, it's helpful. Experience, you can't recreate game experience, and so he got some, and that'll be helpful. And now in the same scheme, we're hoping it really helps.
What do you think is the biggest step in his development that you want to see going into this year?
Some of the experience, more and more playing a true game, in and out of series, right? Play the series and then get back out there, adjustments. I just want to make sure that he's having fun playing the game. I think he's at his best when he's having some fun and enjoying the game of football.
What do you expect from Aidan Chiles this year? Because this is freshman-ish. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like, he's played in actual games that mattered. It was a unique situation last year where, I think Smith was planning for the long term if he was going to stay at Oregon State by keeping Chiles interested, by getting him playing time. I think if he'd sat on the bench, he would have gotten offers to go elsewhere because he was such a big recruit, but he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He's the future of Michigan State. I think you roll him out and let him battle through 2 and 3 or 4 interception games if he has them. I don't expect them, but I think you let him just learn. Like this to me is a house money year for Jonathan Smith. Call some trick plays. Let your young quarterback grow in the system. There shouldn't be big expectations this year. If you make a bowl game, great, but I don't think you need to in order to feel good, especially when you look at the way that he built up Oregon State.
Yeah, it's tough to tamper expectations for Aidan Chiles, and I know I'm part of the problem because we've been hyping him up all offseason, but what does he offer just right off the bat here? And, I know that Lockdown doesn't like harsh language, but we're going to use that F word again, Spencer. The floor. This floor is getting way higher than it was last year.
Don't tell Zach. I won't tell Zach if you don't. That's our boss.
Might have just lost a sponsor too, but that's okay. But no, this is a floor-raising quarterback. Gave it a few tries last year with 4 different quarterbacks, and it was tough at times. What I also think helps is this isn't your typical transfer quarterback where he's learning a new system, going to a new offensive coordinator, new head coach. No, they all came over as a trio package. And yes, it was just 90-some snaps last year in Corvallis. But it's a whole offseason where you're not relearning everything. I mean, yes, there is still a learning gap with your receivers, the chemistry you build with all of them. But as far as the system goes, it's solid. Now, let's just keep him healthy and upright for 12 games because, yes, I know that, hey, may or may not expect a bowl game. But I think if he is healthy, the floor is high enough for him just as a dual-threat quarterback with all the physical traits he has that makes him better than what we've seen the last few years. I could see a bowl game and would even expect a bowl game if he stays healthy the entire season.
Matt Sheehan, Locked on Spartans. IB Spencer McLaughlin, Locked on College Football. Matt, appreciate the time. Enjoyed it as always.
Appreciate you, Spencer. You're the man.
Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a most wonderful rest of your day.